We appreciate everybody coming. I was reading the other night, and I've come across a verse of scripture I've read hundreds of times, I'm sure. But you know how you, at least I do, I can't accuse you of it, but a lot of times you read, and you're reading along, you're reading the scripture, and you've read it so many times you already know what it says, and you're not really reading it, you're just remembering it more than anything. You know, when you're reading one verse, you already know what the next verse says, and if you're not careful, that's what you do, and when you get done, you haven't got anything more out of it than what you had when you started. And I do that a lot, I guess. I mean, I just, I don't know, maybe it's a bad habit, I'm sure, but something I need to work on. But I was reading in Luke chapter number 17, that's where I'm going to be preaching from this evening. And I came across one verse, and like I said, I've read this hundreds of times, I'm sure. But like the other night, it just jumped out and hit me in the face. And you ask little children sometimes, do you know any Bible verses? And a lot of times they'll say, yeah, I know one, Jesus wept. Well, you know another one now, remember Lot's wife. Ain't but 3 words in it. 17th chapter, start with verse number 26 this evening. And as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be also in the days of the Son of Man. They did eat, they drank, they married wives. They were given in marriage until the day that Noah entered into the ark, and the flood came and destroyed them all. Likewise, also as it was in the days of Lot, they did eat, they drank, they bought, they sold, they planted, they builded. But the same day that Lot went out of Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven and destroyed them all. Even thus shall it be in the day when the Son of Man is revealed. In that day, he which shall be upon the housetop, and his stuff in the house, let him not come down to take it away. And he that is in the field, let him not likewise return back. Remember Lot's wife. Now I want to preach a message tonight with the help of the Lord. I've not been able to get this off my mind, and I've thought about it all day today. Those 3 words, remember Lot's wife. I thought, what in the world can I remember about Lot's wife? Because I don't know anything about Lot's wife. The only name that she has is Lot's wife. I mean, we don't even know what her name was. You could call her Salty, I guess, but the Bible says here, Jesus said, remember Lot's wife. And he, in this teaching that he was doing here, he began to tell them what it's going to be in the last days. And I know you've heard this so much lately that you may be getting tired of it, but I can't help it. I've got leaving on my mind, and I'm telling you, Jesus is coming, and he's coming soon. It's going to be a lot sooner than what a lot of people think, and folks are just not ready for him to come. They don't believe that he's coming. The only reason I know tonight why anybody wouldn't be looking for Jesus, because they don't really believe that he's coming. There's a lot of people that says they believe, but I just wonder tonight how many people actually believe what they say they believe. And it's just so hard sometimes in this world that we live in, especially. It's easy to get wrapped up in the things of the world and forget about the things of God sometimes. But I was reading this and these scriptures, and Jesus began up here in verse 26 by saying, as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the Son of Man. And I began to think about this. I've preached on these things before. I've studied about it. I've taught about it. I've sung about it. I mean, all these things. But do we ever just stop and ask ourselves the question, how was it in the days of Noah? And you know something, we read about it in the book of Genesis. There's only a few verses that is dedicated to that. But I began to think about what was they doing in the days of Noah that was going to be like they are in the last days and in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. And the first thing I noticed about the days of Noah is they ate and they drank. Now, what's wrong with eating and drinking? We all do that. We have to eat in order to live. And we have to have water. Our bodies need so much water in order to exist. So we have to eat and drink. And I began to think about this. There's nothing wrong with eating and drinking unless you eat and drink and get to the point where that you forget about God. And I'm afraid that America today, and I can't speak for the rest of the world, but I am an American and I know a little bit about America. We've come to the point that we eat so much that we don't never stop and realize and think about where it comes from. These people over here in Noah's day, the Bible said that God looked down and he saw the sin of man and the corruption of man was so bad that he was going to destroy the whole world. But what they were doing was they was eating and drinking. I've always preached they was having a party, and I think they were. I think they were just one big happy party all the time. And I think about that. I look around the United States tonight. What do I see? A bunch of partying going on. Everybody seem like they live for the party. That's all that they want to do. And those that have a job only work 5 days a week. And they always looking for Friday night and Saturday night because they working for the party. They live for the party. That's all they want to do. And that's what they were doing in Noah's day. Next thing we notice about Noah's day, they married wives and were given in marriage. There's nothing wrong with that. Matter of fact, the Bible teaches us to marry. The Bible said in Proverbs chapter number 18, whoso findeth a wife findeth a good thing. So there's nothing wrong with getting married. That's not a problem. I mean, the Bible said, God said back in the book of Genesis around the second or third chapter, he said for a man to leave his mom and dad and find a wife and cleave to the wife. And I mean, it's in the Bible, all in the book of Ephesians, it talks how that a married couple is supposed to act and treat one another. And so being married is not a big problem. But that word, that last phrase in there said they was given in marriage. What was he talking about in marrying and given in marriage? And I began to think about this. And even though there's nothing wrong with marriage, when a righteous person becomes married to an unrighteous person and they have children, the children are only going to be half righteous. Because people think, well, I can marry this person, my spouse, she or he is lost, but that's okay because I'm going to lead them to Jesus. You're kidding yourself. In most cases, that does not happen. In the majority of cases that I know of, what's going to happen is that lost person is going to draw you away from God. And I mean, that's just how it is. And that is the fact of the matter. There's a few cases that I know of where that didn't happen. I've seen men go to church without their wives. I've seen them. I say, where's your wife at? Oh, she didn't come tonight. And they just go on anyway. And I've seen women that come into the service and never have you wouldn't even know they had a husband because you never see them. And they always come anyway. There's cases where that is the case. But in the majority of instances that a lost person will draw somebody else away from God. I see it every day. I've seen it for 45 years. And this giving in marriage, I don't know, I may be plumb off base here. But I look at the sons of Adam and Eve, and the first son was born was Abel. And then Cain came after him, and Cain slew Abel. And then they had another son, and Eve said, God has given me a man-child to replace Abel, and Seth was born. And we've heard a message, I believe, last week where Brother Sable, I think, was talking about how that Seth, if you run his lineage, you'll find him coming right out in the book of Matthew in the lineage of Christ. He was a righteous person, and he came from Adam and Eve. And yet the first murderer that ever was in existence came from the same two people. And these two people, Cain and Seth, they began to have children. And those children, I'm sure, began to come together. The Bible said when the sons of God saw the daughters of men. That's what it says. And I've had people debate that. They say, well, I think it's talking about the angels. I think it's talking about this and that. I think it's talking about the righteous people. I began to see the unrighteous people, and they were attracted to them, and they got married, and they had children, and one trying to serve God, and the other one not trying to serve God, and the children don't know what to believe. I know some people right now, they're so mixed up in their mind, and you think, how can anybody be so confused? And then you meet their parents. And Dad, he's a womanizer and a curser and a filthy mouth and a vulgar thinker and all these things. But then on the other hand, Mom, she's a Christian. She tries to serve God. She reads her Bible. She prays. She sings the gospel songs and all this. And here's the child coming up, and he don't know which way to go. And I think after several generations of that, that's where we wound up in the 6th chapter of Genesis, that the world was evil. Every imagination of man was wicked. John 1 John 3 said, not as Cain, who was that wicked one, and slew his brothers. After generations of these people coming together, and I know we all know them. I mean, you've got children, you've got grandchildren, you've got friends, you've got people that you're in church with. They're saved, they're trying to live for God, and they pick a mate that don't care nothing about God. And you're thinking, I wish you wouldn't do that. I've even told them on occasion, I wish you really need to stop and think about this. And then the next thing you know, they're all messed up, and they say, I wish I'd listened to you. Listen, after generations, and the Bible teaches me, according to the way I see it, the flood was 2,000 years after the creation. They had 2,000 years to create all this unrighteousness through the giving in marriage. 2 Corinthians chapter 6 said, be ye not unequally yoked together with unbelievers, for what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, and what communion hath light with darkness. Now I realize that this is not just talking about marriage, but it ain't excluding marriage either. Paul wrote here and he said, don't have any fellowship with unfruitful works of darkness. And he said, what fellowship hath righteousness with unrighteousness, or the communion, what communion hath light with darkness? You may have a business partner. You're trying to serve God and they ain't. You got friends, and I want to tell you something. I've preached this for 45 years, and I don't think I'm wrong. You cannot have lost friends and be a Christian. I mean, I know we all got acquaintances. I'm not talking about that. I know these people we maybe do business with and different things, and I'm not talking about that. But when you've got a best friend that is lost or backslid on God or whatever, and you're trying to go to church and serve God, and all they're trying to do is keep you from going to church and serving and worshiping God, and this won't work. I mean, I'm telling you something, and the majority of time, you say, well, I'm going to be a friend of that lost person. I'm going to win them to the Lord. Most likely, they're going to win you back to the devil. I mean, that's just the way it is. And this is what was going on in the days of Noah. Jesus said as it was in the days of Noah, so shall it be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. This is what was going on. They were having the time of their life till the time of their life was over. They was just living it up. They woke up the morning of the flood. The Bible don't say this. It's just me kind of paraphrasing and preaching what I think. I believe they woke up that morning just like any other morning. The rooster crowed, the sun came up, they got up out of bed, they went out, they started their drinking, their eating, their marrying, and their giving in marriage. They started their business dealings, they started their wickedness, they started their evil, and they didn't even pay any attention to the fact that old crazy preacher done got on that boat. Now listen, that wasn't a secret, but they didn't pay any attention to that. I wonder if there was any dark clouds rolled in. When it's going to rain, you can look up in the sky and say, I believe it's going to rain. They didn't know what rain was. It's never rained before on the earth. Never, ever. In the history of the world, there's never been a raindrop fell. So maybe there was clouds, maybe there wasn't. But if there was, they probably looked up and said, wow, the sky is kind of funny looking. But they still just went on doing what they was doing. They never stopped and thought, man, this is different. Something weird is about to happen. And they just kept on doing what they did. And the Bible said that they knew not until the flood came and took them all away. There was no excuse for them not knowing. Noah preached it for over 100 years. He lived it in front of them, and they saw him, and he was an example, and he had a testimony before them, and yet they didn't pay any attention to it. Then Jesus switched over, and he said, as it was in the days of Lot. Well, let's look at the days of Lot just for a minute. The Bible said they ate and they drank, just like they did in Noah's day. Same thing, and there was nothing wrong with them eating and drinking either, just like in Noah's day. Not a problem with eating and drinking, unless you forget God while you're doing it. I see people, they eat and they just enjoy all the blessings of God. They never once give Him thanks for what they have. These people, they ate and they drank. But the Bible goes on now, it changes here. It didn't say they was marrying and giving in marriage. But it did say they were buying and selling. So they had businesses in Sodom and Gomorrah. They had big business. They was buying, selling, probably real estate and chariots and whatever else they could get a hold of, produce, fruit. I mean, they just buy and sell. It also said they were planting and building. It didn't say that in Noah's day. I'm sure they did, but the Bible didn't mention it over there, but it's mentioned it here. And there's a reason why and a purpose why it mentions it. These people in Sodom and Gomorrah, apparently was a booming city. It apparently was a place where a lot of people, probably wealthy people, lived, maybe, and they bought and sold. They had their business, they built, and what they built, they sold to somebody. I mean, life was just booming. Nothing wrong with all those activities. I've done a little buying and selling. I never felt bad about it. I'm sure you have. Nothing wrong with that. Buy and sell all day long, every day except Sunday. I'd draw a line there. But buying and selling is not the problem. The problem is that while they're buying and selling, they forgot about God. They was building, planting. And in Deuteronomy chapter number 8, you think about 2 times now Jesus has mentioned eating and drinking as being a bad thing, when we know it isn't. But in Deuteronomy chapter number 8, and it's also in chapter number 6, but God told Israel, when you get into the promised land, don't you get over there and start eating from those gardens that you didn't plant, and drinking water from those wells that you didn't dig, and living in houses that you didn't build, and enjoying all this comforts and all this wealth that you're going to get when you get into the promised land. He said, you be careful and don't forget about God when you get there. What did they do? They went in there and started enjoying all that stuff, and the first thing they did, forgot about God. He said, when all your substance starts multiplying, he said, when your livestock start multiplying, when your farms and your vegetables and your fruit starts multiplying, when your wealth starts multiplying, when all these things, the blessings of God comes upon you, don't forget about God. I told somebody the other day, the problem in America is we've got so well we don't need God. At least that's what a lot of people think. Listen, I wouldn't care if I was a billionaire, I'd still need God. But we live in a country where if you go to the cabinet, there's always food. If you go to the refrigerator, there's always something in it. You go to the garden, the fruit's coming in. You go, and the vegetables are all coming in. Everybody's blessed. And we look at that and we say, why do I need God? I've got everything I need. Listen, God is not something just to have around when you need something. He's pretty good to fellowship when you don't need a thing. But people don't see it that way. In verse 31, the Bible tells us in here in Luke chapter 17, verse 31, he said, when you're in the field and your substance is in the house, don't go in there and try to get it. Why? Because you're not going to take it with you. You know, I mean, there's people in this world, and I've heard them personally, and I know what I'm talking about. There's people right now, if you talk to them, they'd say, I don't want Jesus to come because, man, everything's good. Well, I want him to come because everything's bad. I mean, we must be living in two different worlds because the world I live in is not good anymore. There was a time when it was pretty good, but that time's just about gone away. But the same day that Lot left Sodom, it rained fire and brimstone from heaven down and destroyed them all. Now Sodom didn't have a testimony. Sodom didn't have a witness. Sodom didn't have a preacher. Because Lot went down there and vexed his righteous soul every day. He never told nobody about nothing. He had grown children that had never heard of God. I'm sure of that. I mean, he was just sitting down there just at ease. And the Bible said, woe unto them that are at ease in Zion. And that's what Lot was when he was down there in Sodom. When he was down there, he went in, and he went in wealthy. The Bible said him and Abraham divided because they had so much substance, each one of them did, that they couldn't dwell together, and so they had to go separate ways. Lot went down there with an abundance of things, and when he came out, he just had the shirt on his back. And I'm going to tell you something, that's what sin will do to you. It'll take everything you've got away from you and leave you with nothing. But yet people think it's the grandest thing in the world. I've seen people lose good jobs because they couldn't work for drinking and drugging. I've seen people lose families, and I've seen people lose wives and husbands because of sin. I've seen people lose their children because of sin. I've seen all these things. And I'm going to tell you something, sin is a destroyer. It'll take everything you've got and leave you with nothing. But the same day that Lot went out of, I think Lot ran out of Sodom. The angel said, you get out of here. And really, I think Lot sort of resisted, but the angel said, you're going to have to go because I can't do anything until you're out of here. So Lot took his wife, and the Bible said he went and talked to his sons-in-laws and told them what was going to happen. He warned them, God's fixing to destroy this place, and they laughed at him and mocked him. That's what they'll do. When you're not living for Jesus and you try to tell somebody else about Jesus, they ain't going to listen to you. They're not going to do it. But I think that Adam or Lot, when he finally came to his senses and said, man, we got to go. I can just imagine, the Bible said, remember Lot's wife. Now I can just imagine and he had 2 daughters that went with him, but I just imagine. And the angel said, don't look back behind you either. I can see Lot looking back just a little bit, not at the city of Sodom, But I can see him hollering to his wives, come on, we got to go. Come on, you need to keep up. Come on, you're slowing us down. We got to get out of here and maybe look around every once in a while, see where she's at. And she wasn't in no hurry because she didn't want to go. Why didn't she want to go? She didn't believe Lot either. When he said God's going to destroy this place, she didn't believe it. She did not believe it. I think she probably left under resistance, and I think as her and Lot was making their way up the trail there, getting out of Sodom, I think that she said, Lot, this is the craziest scheme you've ever come up with. This is the dumbest thing that's ever come up in our life. You know there's a bridge meeting this afternoon I'm supposed to be hosting. I've got cakes in the oven. I've got food cooked. And they're expecting me to be there. And here you are dragging me out of here on some kind of a wild goose chase. Talking about a God that don't exist. Going to destroy a world with a fire that he don't have. I mean, I can just hear all this. The Bible don't say none of that. But I mean, that's just what I imagine. She did not want to go. Why not? Because everything she had was back down there in Sodom. She was born there in that sinful place. Her parents died in that sinful place. She had grandparents in that sinful place. She had a home in that sinful place. Everything that she had, don't matter what it is that you mention about Lot's wife, everything she had, everything she was, everything she ever had been, was all down there in Sodom. And she didn't want to leave it. And that's the reason why, that after a while, it just got the best of her. She turned around and take one more look. And that's when the Bible said she turned to a pillar of salt. And I want to tell you something. Can you imagine what Lot must have felt when he saw his wife? I don't know how long it took her to change. I don't know how long it took. I mean, God could have done it in a twinkle of an eye, but he may have taken a minute or two. I don't know how long it took. I wonder if it took so long that she realized something bad was happening to her. You ever think about that? What was going through her mind when this happened? Remember Lot's wife. You know why she looked back? Because everything she had was back there. And she didn't have time to take anything with her. Now I mentioned that in Genesis the Bible said they was married and given in marriage, and Sodom didn't say that. In the days of Lot, they wasn't married and given in marriage. If they had been, they'd been homosexual marriages like we have in this ungodly nation we live in today. At least they didn't get married. The city was full of homosexuals. But you know, at least they had enough sense to know that a man can't marry a man and a woman shouldn't marry a woman. And I mean, that's just common sense. That don't take a lot of intelligence to understand and know that. But in Noah's day, there's married and given in marriage, but you don't find anything about homosexuality. But in Lot's day, you find homosexuality and you don't find the marriage and giving in marriage. Kind of tells me that we're worse than they was, because we're not. Hey, two things going on in America today. Very few people getting married to start with. Some of the people that get married are same sex, homosexuals, getting married, and the rest of them shacking up. And it's all sin. I mean, I don't even know if they was shacking up in Sodom. If they was, it's two men shacking and two women shacking. I mean, hey, it's an ungodly thing to even think about. But the Bible said as it was in the days of Lot. I want to tell you something. The days of Lot was not a pretty day. And he said, remember Lot's wife. She was leaving her home. She still had children down there. She was leaving her children. You know that if Jesus comes right now, I may be leaving some of my children and grandchildren behind. I can't say they're all going. I can't say they're all saved. I can say one thing, most of them don't live like they are. I don't know their heart. I don't know what God has done for them. Apparently not much, because they're certainly not doing anything for Him. And when the rapture takes place, if I have any time to think about anything. I like that old song, Goodbye World, Goodbye. I mean, I'm getting out of here, but I wonder if I had any time to think, which in a twinkle of an eye, you ain't going to have much time. But I just wonder, would you think, man, I'm leaving my kids, I'm leaving my grandkids, I'm leaving my friends. But hey, it's over. I've tried to warn them, I tried to tell them, I tried to get them to come to Jesus. They wouldn't have anything to do with it, and now I'm leaving and they're staying. Lot's wife had children down there in Sodom and Gomorrah with all them hailstones or fire and brimstone falling on their heads. It was a sad day for her, and it was a sad day for Lot, and it was a sad day for the world. It was a sad day for Sodom. The only one that came out with anything at all was Lot, and man, I'm tell you something, he's so messed up after that, he'd probably been better off if he'd stayed in Sodom. They came out, but on that morning that the fire and brimstone started raining down, can't you just see them? They woke up, rooster crowed, they got up, beautiful day outside, just like yesterday, just like every other day since I've been alive, and I've got a business meeting in 30 minutes. I got to get on down there. And they may have been sitting around the conference table, and the first stone hit them. They said, what in the world is that? That's just the beginning of sorrow. That's what that is. The women may have been up at the well drawing water. The men was out milking the cows or whatever. And the work, just life went on as normal. It's just a normal day. Just like any other day. Job woke up one morning, just an average day, a normal day. When he got out of bed, by the time he went to bed that night, he'd lost everything that he had. And these people in Sodom, I believe they woke up and it was just a normal day. Business as usual. Nothing going on today that's unusual. They just didn't know how close they were to destruction. This world has no clue how close we are to the judgment hand of God falling on us. But I'm glad today that I'm saved, and when Jesus steps out on the clouds of glory, I'm going to get out of here with him. And it's going to be too late for anybody that's not ready. These people in Sodom and Gomorrah, they couldn't have got out then if they'd wanted to. I think Lot and his wife was the last two out of town. And she only made it a short ways before she turned around and said, I'd rather be there as to be here. Listen, if you don't want to live for Jesus, you don't have to. If you don't want to serve God, you don't have to. Nobody's going to make you. I was thinking about people that have told me down through the years, why don't God just make me love him? He's not going to do that. God is not going to, he could give us all a spirit of love toward him. And I mean, everybody in the world has to love him. That's not what, he wants you to love him because you want to love him. The angels came down to Sodom and tried to rescue Lot's wife. Only she wouldn't have nothing to do with it. She wasn't going to have anything to do with it. She loved the sinful place she was, and she didn't want to change. She was leaving with Lot, but she wasn't liking it. She probably thinking, Lot, you know good and well, there ain't nothing going to happen here. And when we get out here, we're going to stay gone a day or two, and then we're going to go back with egg on our face. Sorry, there wasn't anywhere to go back to. I've read about excavation and stuff around the world, different places, and archaeologists find stuff all the time. They found some of the walls of Jericho. They found different things around Israel. They found things that belonged to the Philistines. They say they even found some rusty chariot parts on the bottom of the Red Sea. I don't know about that, but they claim they know where Noah's Ark is. They've seen it down through the ice, and all these things. But you know something, that what I read was they can't find one sign of Sodom and Gomorrah. They look around these places and they find dishes or glasses or cups from this era back here. They dig all around down where they think Sodom and Gomorrah was, and the last I heard, they haven't found one thing. You know why? Because when God destroys something, it's destroyed. And there will be nothing left. I guess what I got on my mind tonight more than anything is the soon coming of the Lord. The flood came, the people wasn't ready. Fire and brimstone came, the people weren't ready. Jesus is going to come, people ain't going to be ready. I know we get out and we tell them, we talk to them, we leave Bible tracts, we try to invite people to church, we do all that we can, and they just turn a deaf ear. Just like they did in Noah's day. No, I don't know what this rain stuff is you're talking about, but hey, we've never seen anything like that, and that's just some dream you had. Lot, you know it's not going to rain fire and brimstone down out of heaven. Well, you know better than that. Well, I don't even know where you come up with such an idea. Preacher, you know Jesus ain't coming. He ain't never come before, and he ain't going to come now. Sunday school teacher, I don't know what you're talking about, because what you're talking out of your head. That's the way people look at it, and I want to tell you something. It's going to happen. And when it happens, it'll be too late to try to do anything about it then. Today is the day of salvation. Not tomorrow, not next week, not some other time, but right now, today is the day when we need to get our hearts right with God. Make sure everything's clear between us and God. Make sure we're on the ark. Make sure we're out of Sodom. Make sure we're away from all this ungodliness. It breaks my heart to see, especially young women, young girls. It's bad enough for the boys, but when young girls get out and just mess their life all up for no reason. They get behind somebody, and I don't know how many I could tell you about tonight that I'm acquainted with or have been over the years. They was doing so good and living such a pure life, such a good life, a holy life. And all of a sudden they fell in with bad company. And when they fall in bad company, and Sister Carol knows one right now, and she said, you know you wasn't raised like that. I know I wasn't. You need to come away from her, because if you don't, it's going to mess you up worse than you can fix. I know, I'm not going to do that. I just ain't going to do it. But listen, there's a multitude of people like that. I've known families, husband and wife, got divorced because the wife took up with a bunch of wild people and started running around all over the place and drinking and drugging and everything. Listen, when you get involved with the wrong crowd, you're going to do the wrong things. And you think you won't, but you will, just the same. What can I do to ensure I don't do that? Get away from that crowd. You don't want me to have this person for a friend. If they're saved, it's okay. But if they're not saved, you better not want it. While Miss Christie comes to the piano tonight, this is the message. Are you ready to go? Remember Lot's wife. She was the one that wanted to hold on to the world. She was the one that wanted to hang on to the things that she had. She's the one that wanted to take it all with her. She was the one that wanted to go back. Is that you tonight, or somebody you know? Maybe somebody here in the service tonight. I feel like I'm preaching to the choir, but we also put this out on the internet. Maybe somebody needs to stop and think about what you're doing and why you're doing it. While we stand tonight and while we sing the number.